Chapter 11. Relationship Points. And so the year came to a close. It ended with a whimper. There were no widespread New Year's festivals, an oddity for Japan. But ultimate despairs and terrorists alike had taken to attacking public celebrations, and no one dared risking their attention. Chiaki spent the evening curled up on her bed, staring out the window at the night sky, and missing the fireworks that normally bloomed across it. But there was something else on the gamer's mind, something just as important. Hinata-kun had mentioned once, before he left, that his birthday fell on New Year's Day. She remembered. She remembered waiting in the snow by the fountain, shivering and clutching his present in mitten-clad hands. It had been part of winter break, and he'd surely gone home, but she'd still clung to the hope that he might stop by the school. So she'd waited and waited for him to show up, waited until the sun had gone down. Only then had she conceded defeat and brought his gift to the post office. Chiaki tried very hard not to think about what had actually been happening to him during that time. She hadn't been able to celebrate with him then, but she could celebrate with Kamakura-kun now. The problem was, how? Chiaki didn't have the supplies to set up a big birthday party, and she got the feeling Kamakura-kun wouldn't like one anyway. She didn't even have a way to get him a present, or any idea what he'd even want. But she still wanted to try to show him she was grateful he'd been born, so she set her alarm to wake her bright and early January 1st. Which turned out to be unnecessary, as her nightmares woke her up first. She was already laying on her back, breathing heavily and chasing the images of that damned maze out of her head, when the annoyingly loud ringing started. Chiaki jumped and swore, glaring at the red numbers as if they'd personally done her wrong as she slammed the alarm off.
I hate alarm clocks,
she thought grumpily. Popping the stiff joints out of her back, she slowly dressed. Skirts, buttons, ties. She could do that all on her own now, fingers only slightly clumsy. Chiaki still marveled at it sometimes. It felt like not long ago that Kamakura-kun had to do this for her. She grabbed a piece of paper off her dresser and slipped it into her blouse packet. Then, leaning on her cane, she tiptoed into the hall, to the stairway. Her eyes darted to Kamakura-kun's door. It was closed, the lights off.
Good.
Tentatively, Chiaki sat down on the top step. Kamakura-kun had her doing exercises to strengthen the anti-gravitational muscles in her legs, but she still couldn't quite manage to go up and down the stairs, especially not on her own. It was the one thing he still needed to carry her for. But if there was one thing video games had taught her, it was problem solving. Placing her cane on her lap, she very carefully scooted forward and down, bracing for the slight jolt. She took a moment to catch her breath, then she repeated the motion. This odd slide bump down each individual step scraped her bottom and thighs, but it worked, and she made it downstairs without making too much noise. Chiaki didn't know how early Kamakura-kun got up. She liked to sleep in, and he was always awake by the time she was. So she'd set her alarm for 6 a.m., hoping that he would be like a normal young man for once and not want to get up before then. Unfortunately, he was. "It is unusual for you to be up this early, Nanami," he commented idly from his position on the sofa, where he was dispassionately watching the morning news. The television display was par norm, a news report tallying last night's murders and arsons. In the corner of the room was Yumigami's hutch, where even the rabbit was blinking as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "I do not believe it has happened before." Chiaki's shoulders slumped. Kamakura-kun's face was cast in eerie blue light from the TV screen, which, combined with his blank expression, made him look practically alien. Had he been there all night? But his eyes showed no sign of tiredness, just slight curiosity. All that effort to wake up early and surprise him, and he'd beaten her to it. Actually, for him to be up, dressed, shaved, and ready at 6, Didn't he have to get up even earlier than that? She shuddered at the thought.
I wanted to get up before you. I was going to try making you breakfast.
She mumbled, moving to Yumigami's hutch. If she was up this early, she may as well feed her. Kamakura-kun's head turned, tracking her across the room. Why? The quality and nutritional value of your food would not be as high as my own.
Well, it's your birthday today.
A beat. So it is, he said, as if the thought hadn't occurred to him. However, I still fail to see why such an occasion warrants you deviating from your normal routine.
It's your birthday.
She stressed.
That means you should be getting treated today. And...
She fiddled with the food bag, feeling suddenly nervous under the weight of his stare.
Normally friends do that with presents and a party. But you aren't particularly material, and it's hard to party with just 2 people anyway. So, I don't know. I just wanted to do something nice for you.
Aware that she was starting to ramble, she flushed and hurriedly turned back to pouring out Yumigami's food. How illogical, was all he commented. A birthday is nothing particularly celebratory. It is merely a reminder that an individual's cells have aged, bringing them closer to perishing.
No, it's a day where I show my appreciation for you.
She corrected, turning so he could see her, puffing her cheeks out.
Where I show how happy I am that you were born.
He was quiet for so long that Chiaki had time to finish feeding Yumigami and decided to make breakfast anyway, even if it wouldn't be a surprise anymore. Even though she knew he didn't have a favorite food, she still wanted to treat him. She paused on her way to the kitchen, recalling the paper in her pocket. Hesitantly, almost shyly, she drew it out and gave it to him.
I'm sorry I couldn't get you a proper present.
She apologized as he stared and stared at the handmade card. Happy Birthday written on the front in bright blue ink. Held in his elegant hands, against the stark formality of his suit, it suddenly looked very childish. It didn't help that her art skills were terrible.
I couldn't think of anything you'd really want, though.
I am talent incarnate. I was created for that purpose, not to want. That struck Chiaki as incredibly sad.
Does he really see himself that way?
She placed a hand on his arm, and his eyes snapped to it.
You're not just your talent. You're a person, too. There must have been things you've wanted.
They locked eyes. His gaze did that thing where he was analyzing something intently, where he stopped blinking and stared as if he were looking into her soul.
I'm missing something,
she thought, feeling her face warm under his intense stare. She didn't dare think about what it was. Then he turned away, gently placing the card on the seat beside him, and the moment broke. There are exactly 2 things I have desired. One is beyond my reach for now. The other is your company. Chiaki was quite glad he wasn't looking at her, since she couldn't hide the surprised, flattered smile that crossed her face.
Just spending the day with you is enough? I'm enough?
Yes. A pause. However, if you really desire to cook, I will not stop you. Her smile became a beam.
Thanks. I appreciate you letting me treat you. Even if you don't think your birthday is anything special. I do. Western style.
She decided as she ambled off, the bounce in her step not hindered by her cane at all.
Just to shake things up a little.
And so, 15 minutes later, she proudly set down a tray of fluffy pancakes, biscuits, and sausages before him. Chiaki knew her cooking level wasn't the highest, but it wasn't so low as to make her comically burn everything either. But Kamakura-kun was Kamakura-kun. He saw every little flaw, and he couldn't stop himself from pointing them all out as he consumed his breakfast. Still, He did eat everything, and that pleased her more than it warranted. Watching his unchanging face as he chewed, Chiaki suddenly realized something.
I've never seen Kamakura-kun smile.
Her bite of food paused on its way to her mouth. It was true. She hadn't. Hinata-kun hadn't smiled often either, and they'd usually been bitter. But there had been times he'd smile a true smile, one where he wasn't weighed down by his self-depreciation and cynicism. They had been so rare, but Chiaki had loved the sight of them. He'd had a gorgeous smile, and bringing it out had felt better than beating her high score. Kamakura-kun, though, he had never smiled. Ever. Or laughed, or even seemed happy. His indifference to life had never struck her more clearly than it had now, seeing apathy to his own birth. And she'd tried to help him enjoy life, tried to show him fun with her video games, but that suddenly didn't seem enough for her. Determination burned in her chest.
That's it then. That's my New Year's resolution. I want to make Kamakura-kun smile.